Recently, it feels like a lot more people are complaining about Dead by Daylight being, well, stale, or that they're getting really tired of it. Is Dead by Daylight getting more stale though? Honestly, it's probably just the cycle repeating itself again. New content drops, we enjoy it for a month or two, we start getting bored of it and complaining right before the next update. This happened last time with Singularity, and people were complaining a ton about how boring and annoying the game is right before Alien dropped, then bam, suddenly everyone is playing again. Honestly though, there still is one underlying issue with Dead by Daylight, and that is its utter and severe lack of variety. No, I don't mean anything perk or meta related because that's opening Pandora's box. What I do mean is if we go back in time to really any point in Dead by Daylight's history, we are still playing the exact same game. We still loot pallets, book survivors, vault, we're playing the same exact objective since the game has come out. Obviously, there are some things that change over time, like perks or times for actions, stuff like, the anti-camping mechanic that just happened, stuff like that. But at a base fundamental level, the core gameplay loop of Dead by Daylight is the exact same. Now, this isn't to say this is a bad thing at all whatsoever. Many games that are old and still popular are the same as they were before because people generally enjoy the gameplay loop, like say TF2, Left 4 Dead, CSGO, Call of Duty, etc. However, one of the main differences is the fact that games like these have at least some alternate game modes to them, like Team Deathmatch, Payload, Search and Destroy, etc, etc. But some games don't exactly need another mode, like fighting games, because that's the whole point of them, but they still do sometimes have alternate game modes. Dead by Daylight, however, completely lacks that. It is always the same objective every time. Finish 5 generators, power the exit and escape, or hook survivors and kill them. There's never any true variety or alteration to the game itself. It is hard to sort of compare Dead by Daylight to like any other game because Dead by Daylight is truly a one-of-a-kind genre. It's not a shooter or a MOBA or a fighting game, it's not even close to any of those genres. And sure, there are games that come out and are in the same genre, but they don't really last too long. There are times where they do things to alter the mechanics in a match, like during the Halloween event being able to hide in snowmen, or the Halloween event where you could deposit energy for speed, or the anniversary event being able to make pallets or block vault locations, etc, stuff like that. These were all incredibly fun events because it somewhat broke the monotony of the game by having more interactability with the match, being able to alter things going on and choose when you want to do stuff instead of it being like, oh, the map generated wrong, so now I have no pallets on this side of the map, or it spawns 3 pallets back to back that connects into shack and main building. These events made every match feel unique and able to be played differently. Behavior has said that they're looking into more events, and now there's a new Halloween event coming up, so who knows what's going on. This could also be a sort of engine issue with the game, like the long requested 2-killer game mode just being something either not possible or something incredibly hard to do due to the game's old engine. Another thing like this is that the killers too are just sort of samey. Now what I mean by this is all killers play the game in the exact same way, save Nurse. You use your power and chase to usually shut down a loop, you break pallets, vault windows, etc, etc. The only killer in the entire game to not abide by these set of rules and is completely different is the Nurse. But because of her power, it makes her incredibly overpowered. And it doesn't have to be that way. If we look at other games with large rosters, there will be a handful that are truly unique and don't play the same way as the rest of the cast. Take fighting games for example. There can be characters that play the game totally differently than the rest of the cast, like zoners or puppet characters, where they have to play more strategically and you have to play against them totally differently compared to other characters. Or characters with completely unique mechanics and features making them feel completely different from other characters. Take hero shooters or MOBAs with large rosters like that. There are many characters where 2 of them may feel alike in some aspects, and then there are some that just completely play differently from the rest of the game. You can have characters that punch or shoot you can have characters that change the way you interact with the map or how you interact against them. Take TF2 for example. While the game is designed around all the classes, some play the game completely differently, like the medic or engineer, or they interact with the maps differently, like soldier or scout. Or take the pyro. If you're playing one of the characters who have explosives and can be reflected, you have to play differently against them. When I play these characters, they feel completely different from the rest of the cast. There can be a killer that plays totally differently from the rest of the cast while not being stupidly overpowered. One of the most unique killers I think that exists and is one of the most perfectly designed killers is the Plague. Her power is truly interactability wise unparalleled. Compare her power to literally any other killer in the game. Legion, just don't heal and spread out. Pig, get the trap off. Skull Merchant, leave the loop and shut down drones. Demogorgon, dodge shred. Dredge, lock one locker, etc. Every killer has a very simple way to play against them. Except Plague. Plague's power is complex because if the whole team is infected, there are so many ways to play it. Does someone use the fountain? If they do, they give her Corrupt Purge, making her much stronger, but now you're at full health and not throwing up constantly. Does everyone cleanse? If you do, you are giving her more uses of her power. However, if you keep cleansing, it will reset all the fountains, force resetting her. Do you not cleanse at all and risk the chases, being always injured but denying her power? And this is what I mean, Plague's gameplay is always different. Every time you have to play differently based on the circumstances, based on, hook stages and health state, how confident you are in chase, how much pressure there is, etc. It's not like Wesker or Nemesis where if you're infected, you just want to, instantly cleanse yourself. It's not like Onryo where you pick up tape ASAP to, not get condemned. There's a lot of nuance and thought required to playing against the Plague. This is why I want a killer who sort of breaks the rules of the game, and you have to play against them completely differently from any other killer. One killer that I think of is from another game but would be perfect. That being SCP-939 from SCP Containment Breach. Now for those of you who don't play the game or know anything about SCPs, let me explain their kit. 939 does not play the game like any other SCP. Instead, 939 is effectively blind, not being able to see people at all. However, 939 makes up for this by having insane speed and incredible hearing, allowing them to locate their prey through hearing. 939 can sense humans running from far away, seeing them running around, but cannot directly see them unless they're actively making a lot of noise or are directly next to you. This is the sort of killer I want. Killer that completely changes the way you play. Instead of relying on scratch marks and running at survivors you see in the distance holding W, you have to listen to them running around and see the little noise blips in the distance. Now I know what you might be thinking, oh well if they can't see survivors or scratch marks, how would they ever be able to catch up or do anything? This one might be a bit controversial and questionable, but my first thing would make it so that 939 would move faster than any other killer in the game by default, maybe 125 or 130% movement speed, due to them lacking the ability to see survivors or scratch marks, but giving them insane speed to patrol areas quicker and making it easier to run around and listen for things. This might seem insane as a killer moving that quickly would be way too strong, but there still are pallets and vault locations, stuff like that. See, again, the only killer who sort of breaks this monotony between killers is the nurse. She doesn't really have a lunge and moves slower than survivors, meaning you can't actually chase anyone, but she makes up for this by being able to teleport and go through walls, windows, pallets, etc. She is solely reliable on her power to do anything. For 939, you would lack the ability to see survivors at a distance or track scratch marks or anything like that, but compensate for it by being able to have incredible hearing and being able to run faster than any other killer. And then you might be saying, oh well what if I stand still or crouch walk everywhere? Well, two things. One of them being that 939 would get a sort of echolocate ability, making it so that they screech or click intermittently, and should anything be moving around in that time, you would get killer instinct and be able to see them moving around. This would make it so you can't just crouch walk everywhere, being basically invisible to the killer. Another thing is that if you're crouch walking everywhere, you'd be moving between objectives much slower, so it'd be nice slowdown for the killer, because if they decide to walk around or crouch walk everywhere with urban evasion, then they'd be safer but much slower, not doing as much, sort of like holding on to Victor. You're denying the power of the killer, that being the insane tracking through sound, but at the same time you're not really doing much either. Then another thing would be a sort of stim ability to enhance their senses. While this ability is active, you would get an indicator that sort of sounds like a heartbeat, and the closer you are to a survivor, the faster and faster it gets, sort of like hot and cold, based off of the survivor's heartbeat getting faster. Think of it like werewolves tracking in VHS. It would also make it change how you have to play with your kit, because now if you have a smaller terror radius using perks, or undetectable or oblivious, then you can't really use your power on them. This would be a killer that is truly unique, with a power that forces you to play the game entirely differently, and I feel like we need more killers like this. Not killers that just put down a trap in the loop or just go run at you with their power active, but one that makes you really think more playing as and against them, and not to discredit killers like Blight, Wesker, or Billy, because they have incredibly difficult powers to master, but in design, they just go fast in a straight line. Like, Singularity is a very unique and fun killer with the camera and teleporting, with how annoying it is to play because of the counterplay being incredibly simple of spamming EMPs, it just makes it not fun. Or stuff like, grabbing clocks as Freddy, denying you your power for a whole fucking minute. 939 would make you think about how you want to approach situations. Do you run to generators, possibly revealing yourself to the killer, or do you walk around everywhere, being more stealthy but wasting time? When the killer is getting nearby, do you stand still and try to become as quiet as possible, hiding somewhere where they won't try and look? Or what if they start getting close and sensing you, etc, etc. 939 would be a killer where instead of it being like the typical killers where it's just, oh, I see a survivor in the distance, time to run at them and use my power, it would be survivors are doing their best to not be found while you're running around looking for them. And of course, if you need more explanation for this kit, just look at some gameplay from Secret Lab of 939 themselves, then you'll be able to, get a better understanding of what I mean. Overall, I do have hope for the game, and I do feel like this Halloween event will be really sick, and I hope they give us some cool game modes later down the line so we have more things to do. With that, I'll call it here though. Have a great rest of your day and have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.